while its risk assessments have contributed to averting potential harmful transactions, these achievements are highly commendable. However, public expectations remain high. Ghanaians seek clear, decisive outcomes, particularly the successful prosecution of high-profile individuals and the recovery of misappropriation of resources. And this statement is something I normally hear from my good friend, Mr. Samuel Dakon, as he would rightly say. In fact, today when I was wearing my suit, I had him in mind because he normally wears suits, and I would never wear African print, but today the tables have turned. These outcomes are essential to sustain public confidence. Further insights into these efforts will be shared during our dialogue, national dialogue today. On behalf of the Participation, Accountability, Integrity for a Resilient Democracy PED, the program, which is commissioned by the German Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, co-financed by the European Union and the Swiss State Secretariat of Economic Affairs, SECO, implemented by GIZ in partnership with the Ministry of Finance, I express our appreciation for this platform, which provides an opportunity to reflect on the establishment and evolution of one of Ghana's key anti-corruption institutions. I also want to commend CDD Ghana for its continued partnership and dedication in advancing anti-corruption efforts in Ghana, as well as all stakeholders present here for your commitment to building a better Ghana. As we engage in today's dialogue, several persistent questions will arise, and this will be part of the solution Ghana needs in the fight against corruption. As I end, normally I end with a story, but my New Year resolution this year is to end with a poem. So when I'm not doing development cooperation, I like to write poems. So a very short poem titled The Office of the Special Prosecutor. In a land we love, where justice must stand, there arises a voice to cleanse the land. Not by might, not by fear, but by truth that makes all things clear. The Office of the Special Prosecutor leads the way, fighting corruption day by day. From hidden deals to stolen gain, they rise to break corruption's chain. When others fear, they dare to act, with law, with strength, with truth intact, to seek, to find, to bring to light the wrongs which are concealed in the darkest night. Yet no institution stands above tests. Perfection belongs to none at best. So when it falters, we must speak, not to tear down, but to make it strong and just and not weak. For truth demands both voices and sides, to praise what is right and correct what is not right. Constructive hearts, courageous and fair, will build a system we all must share. But they cannot stand alone. This fight is ours, it must be owned. For every silence and every excuse gives corruption space and use. So speak, report, refuse the wrong. Stand for justice, firm and strong. Support the work, uphold the call. For when justice rises, it lifts us all. Let truth prevail, let courage grow. Let every Ghanaian rise and know a better nation we can be if we stand for truth and keep it free. Support the OSP, but hold it true. For stronger systems depend on me and you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kweku Obeng Latte, for that poem. So, in a country where at the end of the fourth quarter of 2023, you could count as many as 747 FM stations, and most of them commercial. You can imagine the kind of situation that the OSP faced. Yes, 747 FM stations. Of course, only 550 are operational. I've not counted television. He said that not the office, the occupants of the office, said on February 28, 2025, what we are used to and know, as said by the Greek tragedy man, that the first truth, the first casualty, truth is the first casualty in war. He said, truth is the first casualty in any criminal inquiry. Let's welcome Mr. Kissi Agyebeng, the Special Prosecutor, for his brief remarks.
Good morning. It's not my program, but welcome. It's not my program because the Office of the Special Prosecutor had no hand in this, and it is for a good cause, so that it is from a deep place of sincerity and neutrality that this dialogue is undertaken. And when we were informed about it, we opened our hearts that it should be done. How many institutions can stand this scrutiny? It is the Office of the Special Prosecutor. More than 70% of the populace want an independent institution to fight corruption, separate from the Attorney General. And more than 50%, and with this, I take pride in it, the majority of Ghanaians trust the Office of the Special Prosecutor than any other institution to fight corruption. And with this, my job is done. However, I have started counting down my days to when I depart as the Special Prosecutor. When I become the former Special Prosecutor, I want to look back and say, civil society forged this office and civil society preserved it. It is your handiwork. Do not let it die. You recall what happened in 2025. Incidentally, it was our best year of performance. At the same time, it was our worst year of existential troubles. Why should Kissi and a few officers of the Office of the Special Prosecutor be the ones always fighting existential battles just to keep this office running? Had it not been the good-naturedness of the president, the office would have been scrapped by the end of December 2025 in Parliament. Ask yourself, why? It is because politicians don't want us around. It is that simple. And why do they not want us around? Because we are bad news for politicians. And that is why civil society should keep it afloat. I am not known to be diplomatic. I speak what occurs to me. The attempt to scrap the Office of the Special Prosecutor last year is not dead. And this is a charge I'm giving to civil society. It is not dead. It is live. But we should not depend on the goodness of the president to say, withdraw it from Parliament. Rather, we should build this institution for the ages. An institution which stands the test of time. I was approached in respect of how to reform, and a lot of the talk I heard was revolving around me. And I told these well-meaning people that do not make proposals because of my nature. Some may see me as good, some may see me as evil. But do not turn legal provisions around my traits and characteristics. And the same way I'm saying, do not let this office's existence depend on the fact that the president wants it to operate as we saw in December 2025. Secure it, bound it up, board it up well. And now we have a glorious opportunity with the Constitution review process. Let it be stamped in it. And we are gratified that the committee, the Constitution Review Committee, put such a proposal in it. Let it be well-founded in it. Let it be well-clad, so that the next special prosecutor will not spend so much of his time fighting for survival of the office, fighting for survival of his position. It has been most unfair. It has not been for the best as far as our fight against corruption is concerned. But of course, some would want that situation to prevail. Because if your attention is sideswiped from the work sometimes, and you are fighting for existential battles, it weakens you in how you work. Civil society, ladies and gentlemen, I would seek your leave to depart after these remarks, so that you can still go ahead with the neutrality which you bounded this program. I do not want my presence to jaundice the discussions, but my able lieutenants are here. They will take all in good faith. And after this intestine examination, we would see where we got things wrong, where we need to improve, where we need to do better. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kissi Agyebeng. And as I said earlier, as he spoke, I could imagine, we all know that in the last year, they came and faced a lot of storms. So if you have as many as 550 radio stations in operation, and you have as many as almost 130 television stations for a small country like yours, your electronic media, you are more saturated than even South Africa. You small country, how many people? And we are not even adding new media. So you can imagine, every day, every minute, you are in the eye of the storm. I don't know how they manage it, but I think they have done well. Please, a round of applause for him again. If I have as many as 700 traditional media on me every morning as a topic to talk about, I'm not sure I can even survive it mentally. So let's get to the point where we get to appreciate the work that has been done by independent consultants and Professor Baole of the University of Ghana Business School as far as the OSP is concerned. So we are going to take a presentation of assessment by the consultants. We will begin with the independent consultants right here in the auditorium with us. And she was once, we were in a privileged position because she had the opportunity to chair the board of the Office of Special Prosecutor at one time, and she has been in the anti-corruption fight for over 2 decades, most of which we have known her to lead the Ghana Integrity Initiative, now Transparency International Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mrs. Linda Ofori-Kwafo.
Thank you very much, Samson. And good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on existing protocols already established. As Samson rightly said, my boss is on the line. Is Prof on the line? Vera. Okay, so my boss is Prof. He is the boss, and I'm the boss lady. Okay, so we did this way together. Currently, I work with Adam Smith International, implementing a project in Ghana called Tackling Serious and Organized Crime Program in Ghana. My presence here today has nothing to do with that. I want to establish this before I continue. As rightly said, I am an independent consultant on this, but because I've been with the OSP in the past, CDDD wanted to ensure that my biases are not captured or influenced, does not influence this in any way. So Prof, the big Prof from the University of Ghana was attached to myself, and we did this work together, and I enjoyed working with him. He's really a great professor, and I'm presenting on his behalf. At some point to come in, I'll try to be very fast with the presentation because we don't have too much time on our hands, so that we would be able to have a good discussion. It's very important also for me to state that today's gathering is also a validation of some of the things we are hearing, we are going to discuss here. And before we leave, your inputs would be summarized and added to the assessment one way or the other. Okay, so Vera, if the slides can start rolling. I have some few slides that I would just want to roll quickly. From the student. So let's take a quick survey. Those of us here gathered here, do you think corruption is a problem in Ghana? If it's not, I think we just move out of this place. Just show by hand if you believe or you think corruption is. Some hands are down. Okay. Those who are of the view that corruption remains a significant challenge in Ghana, I want to see your hands. So majority of us actually agree that corruption is a big issue so far as the country is concerned. For that matter, this conversation can continue. We are also very familiar with some surveys or researches that is done year in, year out as far as corruption is concerned. You know the Corruption Perception Index, annually launched by the Transparency International, by Mrs. Marianda and her team. And you know how Ghana has been performing. If you are a father or a mother in this room, and your child is Ghana, and Ghana keeps scoring below 50%, stagnating between 42 to 43 over a period of time. Will you be happy with your child? Will you be happy with your child? No. So obviously Ghana has not been performing well. On a scale of 0 to 100, Ghana has not scored beyond 48, best score ever in 2014. Afrobarometer survey. Just a CPI, the Afrobarometer survey round 10 actually also pointed to the fact when a question was posed, so Afrobarometer does not only capture corruption, that's all other things, but on the subject of corruption, in 2024, 73.9 in responding to the question is in your opinion, over the past year, has the level of corruption in this country increased, decreased, or stayed the same? 73.9 of Ghanaians believe that corruption had increased between 2023 and 2024. We all know the case of the independent Special Prosecutor. A lot has been done by governments, all state agencies as well, development partners contributing, civil society organizations, importantly, and citizens contributing to the fight against corruption. One of the persistent solutions offered to address corruption in Ghana prior to the operationalization of the OSP in 2018 was that Ghana needed an independent prosecutorial anti-corruption office. So we did an independent institution with prosecutorial powers. But the Attorney General is constitutionally mandated in Article 88 there was a practical challenge, and you and I, it's common knowledge. Unless, of course, this subject is new to you. But if not, there was a common challenge, a practical challenge, that the Attorney General had difficulty in prosecuting people, ministers, that are his or her peers, because they were all always appointed by the president. And you know, this statement you see on the slide right now is captured from the Constitution Review Commission of 2011. Captures this clearly, that the challenge that the Attorney General had in prosecuting. That is why we needed an independent organization with prosecutorial mandate. The popular prescription was to a separate Attorney General from the Minister of Justice. Governments in and out have never been, we're not able to do so, and still we still have Attorney General function still linked to the Minister of Justice function. The government of the day then preferred to create this new organization or specialized agency, and then in 2027 we had the office of 2017, sorry, we had the Office of Special Prosecutor Act 959 being passed into law. If I remember rightly, I always say it was a birthday gift to me, but we have to check again so that I don't make a mistake. It was passed on 14th November 2017. 14th November is my birthday. Can you imagine? After so many years of fighting corruption, they gave me a law. That is why I always peace on my heart, right? Yes, that's if I'm right. And on 2nd January also, the president, in 2018, the president assented to the law. And then we had the first Special Prosecutor, in the person of Mr. Martin Amedu, appointed around 20-something of February 2018. So the office was, importantly, the office was given all lengths, some of the constitutional powers of the Attorney General to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offences. So if you look at this on the screen, see when you had the Martin Amedu era, at the period when you resigned, we had no special prosecutor. We had a deputy, but then we had no special prosecutor. Then we had the Kissi Agyebeng era. And 2023, from 2018 to 2023, we had a mass recruitment of all the people that the office needed to help it execute its objects. Stated in Section 2, its functions, Section 3, and its mandate, Section 4 of Act 959. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just zoom into the approach, what CBE wanted us to do. So the UR actually tells us the terms, but in summary, actually we're trying to look at has the office delivered on its objects for its establishment, has the office made any impact in the fight against corruption, so far as their establishment for the past 8 years is concerned. What approach did we use? So we had options, but we decided to use a mixed approach, employing both qualitative and quantitative methods, but with a heavier leaning towards the qualitative. Remind you, this is not a research, it's a reflection paper. So don't take your pen and start marking how many people were interviewed and engaged, no place. We decided to give the citizens opportunity to contribute to whatever we decided to do. Data was collected from both primary and secondary sources between the period November 2025 and February 2026. And you know that's in 2025. November 2025 to February 2026. This paper sets out to examine whether the OSP is delivering on its mandates and the rationale for its establishment. It adopts the mixed approach, I've already said, the period of the data collection. So by way of presentation outline, we have the relevance of the legal and institutional framework, performance of the OSP, citizens' perception, SWOT analysis, insights from similar anti-corruption agencies. At that stage, I know Professor Bawuli will do the presentation. Then we come and conclude recommendations. I'll run very fast so that we save some time. We decided to rely on the Jakarta principles. There's a statement of principles for anti-corruption agencies. Hereafter, I will refer to it as the Jakarta Principles, as a metric to assess the OSC's legal and institutional framework. So get me, we didn't use it for everything, but that's for the legal and institutional framework. There are 16 guidelines in all for anti-corruption agencies, developed some years back actually, but then the stakeholders that developed it were former anti-corruption agencies head, UNODC, UNDP, so many of them gathering in Indonesia, Jakarta, to actually think through the challenges they are faced as far as the fight against corruption is concerned, and then decided to adapt this to help promote and strengthen the independence and effectiveness of anti-corruption agencies around the world. It is a global principle, 16 in all. In the main paper that we'll finalize and publish, we've written about all the 16, but for the sake of time, for this presentation, I am going to concentrate only on 5 of them. So the 16 guidelines are mandates, immunity, ethical conduct, permanence, financial autonomy, remuneration, appointment, external accountability, authority over human resources, continuity, public reporting, adequate and reliable resources, removal, collaboration, internal accountability, public communication, and engagement. I also want to say that in all this conversation, I never had a personal discussion with the OSP, but a personal discussion with anybody. It's a team, Prof and myself, supported by others, but we try to stay away so that. But then now that they are here, we have some few questions. We'll go back to them for them to validate for us as well, and then we can capture it into the report. So you can see I'm going to concentrate on permanence, appointment, removal, adequate and reliable resources, public communication, and engagement, and then score the OSP on these. So permanence, according to the principle of permanence of the Jakarta Statement of Principles, anti-corruption agencies shall, in accordance with the basic legal principles of their countries, be established by a proper and stable legal framework, such as the Constitution or a special law, to ensure continuity of the anti-corruption agency. The OSP is not a constitutional body, is common knowledge. Unlike the Office of the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, the SHRAG, the police, and all those things, it was created by an Act of Parliament, aforementioned Act 5959. Therefore, OSP will cease to exist if Act 5959 is repealed, the scare that we had last year. Bear in mind, the principle said either by the Constitution or by a special law to ensure continuity. OSP was established by a law, a special law. But then in this country, anything is possible. There was a bill in Parliament last year aiming to repeal the OSP. So then, if you want it to have permanence, to enable us deal with the canker of corruption that is the significant challenge the country faces by way of development, then we should ensure the OSP is here for life. So by this, the OSP is only partially compliant with this principle. Appointments. And when we were trying to get the OSP Act in place, civil society actually debated, organized roundtable discussions, fought very hard. We wished that we could have had a competitive process by which we would have selected a special prosecutor because of the independence nature that we were aspiring. But then politicians will have their way, and they said they will still want to go by nomination, appointment, parliamentary approval, the same way we've been doing things in this country. So we were not successful on that front. By this, ASC shall be appointed through a process that ensures his or her apolitical stance, impartiality, neutrality, integrity, and competence. The current arrangement where the executive begins the process and ends the appointment does not quite guarantee impartiality, since President could appoint persons whom they, in their mind, perceive that they could control. Although the two special prosecutors Ghana has had so far have demonstrated their oh God, this word, I've practiced you several times in the house, unsusceptibility to political control, the apolitical stance required to perform this job might be an issue in future. We might not have a Martin Amedu, we may not have a Kissi Agyebeng. In future, we might have Mr. Solomon Esiedu. Mr. Solomon Esiedu could be easily, but if that is anybody's real name, forgive me. So please, we need to do something about the appointments if we really want to have. So that by appointment and by the Jakarta principles, procedure is therefore only partially compliant to the global principles that have been put in place to support the work of independent anti-corruption agencies. Removal. So by removal, we have actually outlined in the law the nice procedure, the difficulty, and then you have an issue, you do A, B, C, D, set up a committee to make all those things that be done. But from recent experience, anybody, Ghana has a record of being able to remove a chief justice. And let me say this. I have young men as children, heavily men, and one of them said he couldn't imagine it that the chief justice could be removed. I was surprised when I heard it. I smiled and I passed by and said, "You are growing up. You are in a country called Ghana. Anything is possible." So according to section 13.5 of the OSP Act, the special prosecutor shall be in office for 7 years. That we secured. Government can and go, SP can still be there, without the opportunity for a term renewal. But the deputy we know has a term renewal for 2 terms, 5 years per each term. Section 55 of the Act details the processes for the removal of the prosecutor, similar to the process for removal of the chief justice. So on this Act is therefore fully compliant, ladies and gentlemen, fully compliant according to the principle. But in reality, my heart still beats. Anything is possible. Adequate reliable resource, we know. We've been comparing them to other organizations that have been in existence and look at how much money we get them. No. We forgot that this is a new agency. It was now being created, now being established. So many things were needed. But still we compared. So the former Martin Amedu complained, the current OSP has actually acknowledged the fact that resources might have been better than the past, but still there is a challenge. So far as the principle is concerned, we have not fully realized that for the OSP. We do not have adequate and reliable resources. Public communication and engagement. And so why is the OSP always talking, They've not even checked the Act and what the Act mandates the OSP to do. Attorney General decides to talk, why is the Attorney General talking? Every day we complain. The OSP's Act actually says that Section 3.3 requires the OSP to report twice annually on its operation. The OSP has been publishing half-yearly report, and same should be published also on the website of the OSP. And this actually aligns with what the Jakarta Principle states, that ACA shall communicate and engage with the public regularly in order to ensure public confidence in its independence, fairness, and effectiveness. This OSP has done religiously from Martin Amedu's era till date. The OSP has been available also on radio programs, discussions, and all that. OSP is therefore compliant so that this principle is concerned. So I've actually limited this to the critical bits of, for us to understand in terms of establishment legislation and all that, the legal framework. 5 of the 16 principles, the details are in the report. When it's finally published, we'll get to know. So permanence, removal, and whatever, on a scale of 0 0 being non-compliant, 0.5 partially compliant, 1 fully compliant. On permanence, OSP is partially compliant. On appointment, OSP is partially compliant. On removal, OSP is fully compliant, but with in quotes, on adequate and adequate resources, partially compliant. On public communication, the special prosecutor is fully compliant. All this information is available for everybody to find out on the OSP website. Everybody get to know all that you've been doing so far these matters are concerned. As a summary, OSP is fully compliant 2 out of 5 and partially compliant on the remaining 3 of the critical Jakarta principles that is intended to strengthen, embolden, and make an anti-corruption agency very effective. Now we move on to the other part of this report. I must say that if you look at the section 2 of the OSP Act, it talks about an office that is mandated or has the responsibility to investigate corruption and corruption-related office. It's supposed to recover the proceeds of crime from corruption and corruption-related office, and then it's supposed to also prevent corruption from happening. That's which is stated in section 2 of the OSP Act. Actually tells us the 4 main things the SP is supposed to do. Investigation, prosecution. He's also supposed to prosecute, yes, corruption-related offenses. Investigation, prosecution, asset recovery, and the prevention of corruption. So you see OSP collaborating with CSOs to organize events, to educate people, to prevent corruption, and we always have a matter with that. So the investigations being conducted over the period, investigations is both a process and an end in itself. The OSP investigations in the Airbus scandal, for instance, brought finality, so a process and an end to that issue. The office has investigated some top officials. How many institutions have done so? We had the president, former president, then candidate Mahama issue was investigated. Mr. Kenofurata, Cecilia Dapa, Mustafa Hamed, Charles Bisu, Ajenim Boateng, among others, taking on such heavy weights for full investigation has helped the cause of the OSP. This is the qualitative, ladies and gentlemen. On the quantitative side, how do we determine if the numbers are impressive or poor? We could try to compare with other investigative agencies, but with different mandates. Will this be fair? We could also try to compare with institutions with similar mandates in other countries. But given that some of these institutions have subnational offices all over, whereas national offices are yet to be established with more personnel, will this also be fair? It seems to me the only fair way to assess this is to compare the OSP's own figures year on from the table. The OSP seems to be investigating more cases each year. Cases with significant updates, no significant updates. Every year when they actually publish, they say that they don't have any update for us as far as these are concerned. We picked it from the SP's own data available. On cases, prosecution or prosecuted, these are the figures and the recoveries that have been made as well. Also going the way of plea bargaining in some instances. I don't want to delve so much because this is public information. On asset recovery, which is also a mandate of the SP earlier mentioned, under Section 2 of the Act, the OSP has been able to recover some monies as well. Some loss averted. OSP has also captured some money, so preventing. In my view, this should actually be captured under prevention of corruption, so because they prevented it. But currently, the OSP captures the loss averted under asset recovery. Prevention of corruption, the OSP has done a lot. Prevention, they did a risk corruption risk assessment at some point. Anti-corruption education is always ongoing. They do outreach, and they also have something they call Youth Against Corruption Initiative. And all these actually contribute to the prevention mechanisms that they have put in place as their law mandates them to do. And one of the quotes that I saw that was quite interesting was from Tema International School. It said, at first the topic of corruption seemed students were really, really enlightened when they had an encounter to engage the special prosecutor. We move on to some citizens that will be engaged. Ladies and gentlemen, citizens are the biggest stakeholders of the OSP as they are the funders and beneficiaries of the OSP's work. It's therefore important to obtain their feedback on the office work. The paper undertook an online survey in the month of February 2026 on relevant themes among citizens across the country. We surveyed 412 people. The male proportion of the student respondents was 53.9, while the females were made up 46.1. The age bracket, we have 36 to 60-year age group made up most respondents, followed by the 18 to 35, making up the second level of respondents, and the above 60 age group also responded as well. Now these questions were posted. Ghana needs an independent anti-corruption office that the government cannot control. From the graph, the combined strongly agree and agree respondents combines and it's up to 94%. This is good news. People are admitting the fact that Ghana really need an independent anti-corruption because all the organizations that we had in the past have not been able to deal with the issue, not because they are not effective, not because whatever. Corruption is a big, gargantuan problem that we have to tackle with all the seriousness that it requires. Then institutions trusted to fight corruption. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to inform you that each respondent could actually choose as many, more than one institution. The OSP led the vote with 55.2%, followed by Shraj, then Yoku, and then Attorney General. 15% said they did not trust any institution. They don't trust any institution that you can even bring institution from heaven. They wouldn't trust them to be able to do research. Confidence rating in reporting corruption to the OSP. How confident are you in reporting corruption to the Office of the Special Prosecutor? The very confident plus confident responses make up 47.4. A significant 26 is neither confident nor lacking confidence. This is very important note for the Special Prosecutor's Office. The impact of the OSP's work. The work of the Special Prosecutor is making government officials more careful about engaging in corruption. A combined 55.1 of the respondents strongly agree and agree responses indicated that the OSP is having an effect. Specifically, it is making government officials more careful about engaging in corruption. And almost a quarter, 24.1 of the respondents hold the view that the OSP is not affecting the anti-corruption landscape. This is what the people that we engaged said. You are here, you are part of citizens, because we knew there was going to be a validation meeting. After that, tell us what you also think, whether the OSP is making an impact or not. Yes. Level of support to the OSP. Is the OSP doing a good work and should be supported to do even better? Ladies and gentlemen, a combined 58.4 of the respondents expressed appreciation for the work of the OSP. A little more than a fifth of respondents were neutral about the question, while 18.7 of respondents disagreed, some disagreeing strongly with the assertion that OSP is doing a good work and should be supported better. Generally, the OSP has the support of majority of citizens. However, the sizable proportion of citizens who are non-committal about the questions posed reveal that the institution is yet to convince a significant number of Ghanaians on the OSP's relevance and its effectiveness. I move on quickly to a SWOT analysis that we did as well, based on all the information that we gathered. Based on all the information that we gathered, by way of strength, OSP has a clear mandate OSP's objective is very well stated, so I said earlier on, the mandates, the objects of the office is in section 2, the function is section 4, and the mandate of the office is section 2, 3, and 4. Yes. So it has a clear mandate, it has independence, it has great leadership, popular support. In terms of weaknesses, it has no permanence. It could be wiped away any day, any time. And resource constraints tends to be one of the biggest challenges of the office. By way of opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, by way of weakness as well, the OSP lacks, okay, I've said that one. Opportunity. The emerging trend in asset recovery and civil recovery is an opportunity for the OSP, ladies and gentlemen, to make its work much easier. Civil forfeiture, especially non-convention-based forfeiture, allows anti-corruption agencies to seize assets linked to crime without a criminal conviction. Another useful tool is the reverse burden of proof. In this scenario, the prosecutor's job is to link the properties to the accused and then require the accused to explain the source of their property. I'm told I don't have too much time, so I will move on to other things. By way of threats, it's very important for me to mention. The OSP is an institution under siege. There are perennial threats to remove its head. December 2025 has passed. There have been 6 or 7 petitions to remove the current special prosecutor. The second threat has been petitions to declare the office's independent procedural powers as unconstitutional. It happens, we hear in the news, and there have been attempts to always say that, oh, they are not a constitutional body, so what are they up to? Another perennial threat is the de facto political interference. If you remember rightly, Mr. Martin Abidu said that his work, he was being politically, his work, how do I put it? I'm on radio. So political interference, explain it your own way. The OSP is, in its current form, being an institution established by Parliament, faces existential threats. The recent draft repeal bill and the conversation around it in Parliament for scrapping the offices is worth noting. Others are talking about the fact that there are so much resources already, and we should be able to reduce the resources. At this juncture, I will pause, and then we will take some insights from other anti-corruption agencies from Professor Bowley. But even before he comes, I think I've done well. I've talked, sir. So we take Professor Bowley's submission, and I'll come back to do some 2 minutes of conclusions. So, Prof.
Hello, can I be heard?
Prof, go on, we can hear you.
All right, great, thank you.
And we really need you to be as brief as you can.
I will do that. I'll try and do that. I will summarize what we have put together. Thank you for the opportunity. Just to acknowledge the chairman of my church, Apostle Nyapiche. Papa, I agree with you. So we also, as part of the job, we have to look at what exists in other jurisdictions. And as you can see, we took a quick scan of a couple of them, notably anti-corruption agencies in the UK, in South Africa, in Kenya. We did this under the broad themes of structure of the mandate that they are giving, and we try to look at the entire spectrum of the functions of the OSP: mandate, investigation, prosecution, prevention, and accountability. In terms of the in terms of the mandate structure, I hope I'm going forward. I'm not going backwards. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, so in terms of the mandate design of the OSP, we see that it's either that the anti-corruption agency has a mandate which is whole in itself. In other words, it takes the entire spectrum of anti-corruption, or it is split. In our OSP, we have the entire spectrum from investigation right to prevention, which gives it a certain level of control. And this, if you were to compare with the Serious Fraud Office of the UK, which also has an integrated function, like the Sierra Leonean Anti-Corruption Agency, which also has an integrated mandate, it helps it to be able to be in full control over the processes from beginning to end. In other areas, you will find, for example, in Kenya, you will find split mandate. The agency has some mandate, some other agency has mandate for other parts of the work, which creates problems. And so for our OSP, this is a good sign, because then largely it has capacity to begin an investigation and finish it without relying on other things. But that mandate, we are told, also can lead to an overexertion and overextension. Sometimes it makes the institution, quote, too powerful. And here we say too powerful, being mindful of our constitutional rights as individuals to be heard and not to be dealt with in a manner that does not respect our rights. And Samson is a lawyer, so this is extremely important. We also looked at independence, which a lawyer has dealt with very clearly. The independence here, we looked at particularly the ability of the anti-corruption agency to select cases that it wants to focus on, to initiate charges and to compel cooperation, and to ensure that this is something that they have choice over. In some jurisdictions, the choices of the cases can be really a matter of contestation. What matter you decide to investigate or not investigate can be political. So our anti-corruption agency, the OSP, has the capacity to do that. But we also looked at the structural issues and exposure of the OSP, and I think one of the biggest challenge that we think exists in our case is the fact that the OSP, as we understand it, the lawyers can explain this better, has to sort of, does not kind of have the overall mandate of prosecution, and the conversation around whether or not the functions actually conflict with the functions of the Attorney General is something that the lawyers can better explain. So we looked at that. In the case of we see that if there is the Ghana's structural exposure, as we said, can actually choke the institution, and this can lead to veto. So if there's something that the OSP cannot do because it has to refer to the Attorney General, then the issue of case ownership, interagency, dependency, and collaboration can create problems. The case in Kenya is it actually signifies this. The UK Serious Fraud Office actually has oversight over the entire process, and they also have a strong institutional oversight, but not political interference. So in this case, we want to look at the Ghanaian case as something that we would, especially with political interference, as a major consideration. Just so that I'm able to summarize this, in terms of the operational capacity and specialization, our OSP has, because it has the mandate to do the entire work of the job, our OSP must have a lot of expertise and specialties within it to be able to do that. It should be able to do financial forensics, must be able to do digital investigation, asset tracing and recovery, and all of that. Now, if you have an OSP that's not properly built up, then there's a problem. In other jurisdictions, these expertise are readily available to be used, and for the agency not to rely on other investigative agencies, in which case it has full control over what it can do or not do. It's also about the prosecution and court pipeline dynamics. Usually the speed at which investigation can go, the speed at which the special prosecutor is able to determine the speed of cases in court, and all of that has implications. Of course, that actually weakens the OSP's capacity to speed up processes, and the issue of going back and forth in court can have significant implications. So if OSP were to sequence its investigative and its operational activity from beginning to end, and certain part of it is such that they do not have control over, it will be delays. And Ghanaians always want the issues to be as quick as possible, and so that's something that we think should be looked at also. Asset recovery, our OSP has asset recovery powers. As it is in many other jurisdictions, there are asset recovery powers. The core differences here is that in other jurisdictions, this is very easy to do because there's a primary capacity within the institutions, and again, they can initiate processes much more quickly than our OSP. Let me try and I'm just trying to juggle to a bit of confusion, please forgive me. If you look at the comparative prosecution lessons, you will see that, for example, in Kenya, prosecutor control actually shapes outcomes, and if the courts is not able to fast track the processes because of legal gymnastics, then there's a problem. So this is something that also we need to look at. The other area of interest is the issue of prevention and the implication of prevention of corruption, and this usually would be the most important part of the job of the OSP, because as Linda said, prevention helps to avoid the occurrence of this in the first place. And if there is a way to prevent, and these have to be preemptive to ensure that the OSP does not allow the things to happen before we go chasing, then a lot more must happen. And in many places, preventive anti-corruption activities are much more pronounced in some other jurisdictions. For example, in the UK, where the agencies can go much more faster. Where there are distributed accountability, and here the distributed accountability has to be the fact that one case is split across multiple agencies, and therefore accounting for a particular case and its completeness does not depend entirely on a particular agency. In our case, we have the complete picture, and so it's possible for us to be able to speed up a bit of the processes and for us to hold the OSP completely accountable, only subject to the processes in law courts. I think I have to stop here. The report is quite detailed, and I would urge that we take a cue from it and perhaps get a lot more. And during the conversations of the discussion, I'll throw a little more light. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof.
This sort of disjointed presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. He's far away, but he's been able to make his presentation. Some feedback. By way of recommendations, and based on all that has been presented so far, the recommendations are that I'm really growing old. Okay, so let me say it really from here. The OSP should be a creation of the Constitution. Its independence should be firmed up as the sole prosecutorial authority to deal with corruption, Financial autonomy is obviously a recommendation. Honest linked wealth order, and then capacity enhancement. So then if you're actually carrying out all these four elements of investigations, prosecution, prevention, all that, then OSP should be well capacitated. I don't know whether now they are. I'm sure most of us know they are here, and they can actually confirm whether they are fully capacitated or not. And then that which sweets my heart is the Independent Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission that was proposed by the Constitutional Review Commission. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it needs just some 2 minutes on that. The possible significance of this proposal by the Constitution Review Committee deserves some comment. On 19 January 2025, the President Mahama set up the 8-member committee to review Ghana's 1992 Constitution. This committee, led by Professor Henry Kissi Agyebeng, presented its final report to the President somewhere in December. The committee inter alia proposed appropriate amendment to Article 883, 884, 218B, and 218E to take away the authority, the Attorney General's authority to prosecute corruption and corruption-related offences, entrust corruption investigation powers, and vest all authority for prosecuting corruption in a proposed independent anti-corruption ethics committee. The committee further proposes, in this regard, that the Anti-Corruption Ethics Commission take away or merge with the legislatively established Office of Special Prosecutor to create a one-stop shop for all corruption and corruption-related prosecutions. The implication of this recommendation is that the OSP will become the proposed Anti-Corruption and Ethics Commission as a constitutional commission, such as the SHRAJ and the Electoral Commission. This body will have permanence. This body will have more mandates. It will be able to carry out the full gamut of anti-corruption, investigation, prosecution, asset recovery, and prevention that they are doing now. But they need more power, more capacity to be able to carry out this mandate effectively. Ladies and gentlemen, by way of conclusion, the establishment of the OSP addressed the genuine gap in Ghana's governance architecture. Although its early years were very challenging, part of the early years, very challenging. It has since stabilized a bit from 2023 when they were able to recruit the needed workforce to help them carry out their objects and their mandates. The OSP's impact should not be judged just by the figures we see by way of how many cases have been prosecuted and all that. Its investigations and prosecutions of high-level officials show a firm approach that it's likely to disrupt entrenched corruption networks in Ghana if given the opportunity, given the needed resources to carry out their work. The OSP could be more effective, meaning the OSP can be better than they are now if granted additional critical tools and made permanent. Winning the fight against corruption is possible, but it requires more investment and collaboration from all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, on this note, we are very grateful for CDD for giving us this opportunity. Anti-corruption is what I eat. In my current job, we had a meeting somewhere. A very top government official said, I know your face. You've been fighting corruption. Now you are fighting serious and organized crime. Can you imagine? I have moved on, but I'm still here. I love being here, and thanks for it. You have the freedom to criticize this job and add on, so I can actually make it a better way. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Linda Ofori-Kwafo and Professor Justice Bawale. Thanks for the job done. Now, I suppose this is also a very important part of the dialogue that you've been waiting for, where you would also have the opportunity to contribute to the discussion by way of questions or also contributions. Having seen the report. So I'd like to quickly welcome the following upstage for the panel discussion. The panel discussion will start with a 10-minute presentation collectively from our friends in Uganda and Kenya. They'll give us 5 minutes each Sheila Masindi, Executive Director, Transparency International, Kenya, and Peter Wandara, Executive Director, Transparency International, Uganda. Let's welcome the Executive Director, Transparency International, Ghana, Mary Awalana Ada. Let's also welcome Linda Ofori Kwafo back here, Professor Justice Bawele is joining us via Zoom. Samuel Apia Dako, Director, Strategy Communications of the OSP, and Edem Senanu, Chair of the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption. Please, a round of applause for all of them. But like I said, we are beginning with a 5-minute presentation each, starting with Sheila Masindi of TI Kenya.
When you share the findings of this important work that you have undertaken. It's really nice to see you after many years, and nice to see everyone familiar.
Live pictures from the Fiesta Royal Hotel here in Accra, where there's a conversation or a dialogue on the office of the Special Prosecutor. Here the governing chairperson of the Special Prosecutor Office, I'm talking about Madam Linda Kwafo, telling us how the office of the Special Prosecutor can help in the fight against corruption. In recent time, the office has come under pressure over a decision by some members of parliament to repeal the office and how best they can spearhead the fight against corruption in this country. The office, which was created under the administration of Nana Akufo-Addo, was aimed at dealing with corruption and corruption-related offenses in the country. There was a national dialogue on how best to strengthen the office and see how it can help really in the fight against corruption. Live pictures from the Fiesta Royal Hotel here in Accra. And this is how we conclude the live coverage of the dialogue on the office of the Special Prosecutor.